Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, Donald Trump is, of course, the master at trolling his enemies, and he knows that there are certain people who are really hating, who are really antagonistic towards him, and in particular the Europeans. And we've read article after article, and we've covered it here.
We've covered it here.
Yeah, that's saying, well, Europeans are very concerned about the possible return of Donald Trump. And so yesterday in South Carolina, Trump campaigning, and he did one of his bravura performances, and he talked about NATO. And what he said about NATO was quite extraordinary. He said before that, that when people come, NATO member states come to him and say, will you defend us if we're attacked? The first question I ask them is, are you paid up? And if the answer is no, then I say, no, we're not going to defend you.
Well, Tony Soprano would say that. Are you guys paid up for our social club? Are you paid up?
You paid up, but that's it. This is Trump. I mean, he's a landlord. That's what he's been doing all his life. You have to pay. If you're not paid up, you go.
And I've been thinking about reassessing that lease. We got inflation. High demand. Okay.
But this time he went a little bit further. So let me just show you what happened in South Carolina.
And he's adored in South Carolina, everybody.
Yes, that's exactly. That's right. So here we have this. On Saturday, Trump claimed that during an unspecified NATO meeting, he told a fellow head of state that the U.S. under his leadership would not defend any countries who were delinquent. Again, he said that before.
As a landlord would say.
Are you paid up? No, well, you're gone. I mean, and he said, one of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, would you protect us? Trump said, adding, I said, you didn't pay, you're delinquent. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You've got to pay. You got to pay your bills. Boom.
Man, this is the remake of The Repo Man, which is a great film, everybody.
Yeah. So now, of course, there's the predictable meltdown. Oh, Trump calls on Putin to invade NATO.
Of course, that's what they would say.
So this is the response of some guy at the White House. I think his name is Bates. It says Andrew Bates. White House spokesman Andrew Bates responded, saying that encouraging invasions of our closest allies by murderous regimes is appalling and unhinged, and it endangers American national security, global stability, and our economy at home.
Blah, 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 blah.
But the interesting thing is that when Trump talks like this, Trump is using the exact precise logic that you have to use. I mean, basically saying, well, what's in it for us?
Well, and also, if you're not going to pay up, then where's the threat?
Exactly.
I mean, exactly. And this is what I've said to years for these ridiculous, single cell brain people. Said, I mean, if you feel threatened, then why wouldn't you pay more?
That's right. That's right. No, exactly. But the point is also, he looks at the map of Europe. He sees all these tiny states. They don't pay. They don't have anything. And, the only serious military power really is the United States. So essentially he's saying, well, that means we're on the hook for all of your nonsense. You have, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia.
And Finchik now. And now we got Finchik on the hook.
And the Finchik. And they got they're going, and then Sweden. And you're going out of your way to antagonize Russia. And then whatever you do, we're always on the hook. Because if somehow the Russians finally get fed up, then, hey, it's us. So it's like, you have to somehow bring some form of control. And then he said, well, one way you can control this is to say, well, are you paid up? Because if you're not paid up, I'm not even interested. I'm not even interested. Or you're quibbling with the Russians because you're not paid up. So it's at least
Well,
it's a way of saying. Otherwise, we've got 30 countries, 31 countries now, and they all have their own beef with Russia. And each time we have to go in and say, yeah, we're ready to destroy New York and Boston for Moscow and St. Petersburg.
well, I've been using the analogy of five-dimensional chess when it comes to Trump and NATO for years right now. One interpretation is that he knows that Russia has no ambitions to attack NATO countries,
Right.
and so that's why he feels free to do it. I mean, and there is a very strong internal logic there. Okay, I mean, you're making this into some kind of piety for some reason. I look at it as brass tacks. I'm a landlord. Okay, now if you're not going to pay for the upkeep, okay, I'm going to get a new tenant, or I'm not going to rent to you at all. Okay.
Right.
So,
Right.
I shape up or ship out, okay?
Right.
And stop in trying to drag us into your petty problems, okay? Because they could be resolved. Why don't you just resolve them,
Right.
okay?
Right.
Instead of always, you always have the backstop. Oh, I'm going to go to Washington. I'm going to go complain to
Right.
Washington about you, okay?
Right.
No,
Right.
why don't you figure it out yourself? That's what Trump is saying.
That's right.
And I think, and we've talked about this before, if he does return to the White House, he's just going to say that. Just figure it out. Figure it out.
Exactly. And he's saying the exact point, which is this isn't a military alliance. This is a
Right.
protection racket.
That's right.
Basically, we're giving you a free ride. You can say, well, do whatever you want, whatever you please. And then, when you get the predictable response, it's like, needling the dog at the other end of the fence. And then when the dog suddenly loses his temper, you rush up and say, oh, we got to do something about this dog. So he's just saying that this is a protection racket. It's not an alliance. What do you do for us? And then he's gone back to this again. He says, what do you do for us? What does Lithuania do for us? What does Montenegro
George,
do for us?
since the inception of NATO, it's not a trick question here. What has NATO done for the United States?
Right, right, right. It doesn't. It doesn't. And again,
And we know, and George and I know, and any serious person knows, the Soviet Union never had any intention ever to attack NATO, ever.
Right.
There's no evidence for it whatsoever.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because what they wanted was protection. They wanted the buffer zone. There was no other way they wouldn't get a buffer zone other than having these essentially satellite states, communist regime. There was no way they were going to get a neutral Poland. I mean, that somehow Poland would have
nothing neutral about the place.
Nothing neutral. That was it. That was so. And that was and Trump instinctively, again, he's not a geopolitical analyst. He's not, he comes at it, like essentially a street person. He applies certain common sense, and he says, why would Russia want to invade a lot of countries? What's it going to do? How's that going to benefit Russia? And then again he says, and if you are so afraid of Russia, why are you going out of your way to antagonize them? I mean, how does that make any sense? Well, maybe because you think that we're going to get involved in your quarrel, and we're gonna risk committing national suicide on your behalf. Well, that's not a good deal.
When you think about it, when you think of trade policy, tax policy, housing policy, all these other policies, it's all done in Brussels, okay? It's all the administrative way of things, okay? I mean, it's denuded politics immensely because of elite capture of all these Eastern Europeans. They all speak American English. They vacation in Miami, but they don't go to a Trump hotel. But we have this capture. But George, where is the area where you can showboat? Okay, and you can show how vigorous you are and pure you are. Oh, the Russians, as I said, from Vilnius. Okay,
that's right.
With no downside. With no doubt, look, we got NATO. I'm working NATO. I can say whatever I want. I can poke the bear all I want. And Trump knows this. Okay, he can say, why should be on the hook because you have some petty matter? History sucks. Sorry, but it wasn't our history.
Right. No, they exactly right. And again, that's geography. You got geography. Your neighbor is Russia. Well, that's not going to change. No one is going to go and invade Russia on your behalf, remove Russians from your vicinity, just to make life nice and easy for you. This is, you wanted independence, you got independence. Well, now you have to live with a Russian as your neighbor. And but if you go out of your way every day to find something to antagonize the Russians, whoa, let's rename the street. I don't want to call it Pushkin Square anymore. I mean, if you're going to do that, and then, let's antagonize our Russian population, which is about 25-30%. Well, and then think, Russia's getting very mean about this. Washington, again, they're about to invade us. Can you do something? This isn't, this is not a way to go around doing serious security.
Yeah. Well, we know that, when people, wet their pants, they call Stoltenberg the last person you really actually want to call. Okay.
Right.
Completely inept. Okay. But let's give a small example, everyone. The Finnish-Russian border. There is a flare-up there, George. There's a flare-up.
Right.
Okay. Like 20 migrants. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Okay. I'm not trying to be facetious here, but did you see any attempt on the side of Finland to say, "Hey, we kind of work this out. Maybe we've got our wires crossed here. I mean, this is how we see it. How do you see it? How can we?" Right. No. You got to call Stoltenberg right away. That's what we're getting at, and that's what Trump, I think, is intuitively understanding.
That's right.
Why should there be not a small, not a tiny, but a minute disagreement about border crossings be the subject of Foggy Bottom?
That's exactly right. And what's, again, interesting is that Finland, ever since it made its application for NATO, has gone out of its way to cultivate as bad relations with Russia as possible. Same with Sweden. We have Swedish leaders who now talk about, war with Russia is really very likely within the next few years. So, I mean, that in itself, we're saying, well, probably it's not a great idea to get Sweden into NATO. I mean, if war is going to be on the cards within the next few years, maybe we should hold off on bringing Sweden. Oh, no, we got to bring Sweden in. So, you're essentially now you're bringing all these countries in, and relations with Russia continue to deteriorate. And it's always the Americans who are on the hook, because it has to be. Sweden isn't going to be able to do anything against the Russians. It's Americans that are on the hook. Now, as long as Biden is there or Haley or one of these other characters, then fine. I mean, they think, well, this little game can go on forever. But this is their nightmare, that somebody will emerge in the United States, such as Trump, was going to say, hey, this is really lopsided. This is really a bad deal for us.
Yeah, and you can I've made the argument. I can understand NATO's existence during the Cold War. Fine. I don't want, we don't have to hash this out here and now. I do stand by the statement that the Soviet Union had never had any intentions against NATO, right. But that's all a long time ago now. Okay. And particularly if you look, as NATO expanded, particularly in this century, we've had from the Russian side, whether it was President Putin, then the intermediary time President Medvedev, over and over again, sending out feelers from Lisbon to the Urals. Can we get a new security arrangement? This is not new. And I think that Tucker was remiss by not going that far in the interview. And I think Putin, that was an omission on the part of Putin. He could have said that as well. When I first became president, I suggested this. Okay, my successor, Medvedev, also said this here. That wasn't in the interview. It should have been in the interview. My point is, everyone, as NATO is always looking for a reason to exist, and there are skeptics like Trump is saying, why should it exist? The Russian side has repeatedly, at least up until December 2021, they did it again. Okay. Right. So it's not as if, there aren't another side of this whole story. And right. I'm sure Trump is probably not aware of the ultimatums or treaties or whatever you want to call it, of December 21. I'm sure he's not aware of it, but it fits into his argument nonetheless.
You're absolutely right. What's also very interesting, and I mean, it's an obvious point, but it's very rarely made explicit, which is that the sheer dishonesty of these arguments. I mean, they're saying somehow, well, Russia poses a threat to NATO. If Putin wins in Ukraine, then NATO is under threat. But the point is, what has Ukraine got to do with NATO? I mean, this is it. Why have you made this an existential matter? Why do you go on and on about Ukraine? Ukraine is not in NATO. So that's it. So, therefore, when Putin made his suggestions, why couldn't you just simply say, yes, okay, well, we won't take Ukraine in NATO. Fine. Good. Let's get that's out of the way, and then we can. Why did you make this an issue? And that has never been addressed. Which is, all these people, whether Sergeant Schultz and Macron and Stoltenberg, and they all go, oh, Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Why are you talking about Ukraine? It's got nothing to do with NATO. You want to defend NATO? Fine, defend NATO. Ukraine is not in NATO.
And let's remember, everyone, Anthony Blinken is a very dishonest man on everything he talks about, and it's been probably forgotten into the ether. But I can remember it was the summer before the conflict. Public opinion polls in Ukraine. NATO is very popular. People want to join it. Well, let's take a step back, everyone. Well, what Ukraine are you talking about? Oh, Donetsk and Lugansk, and Crimea, they're part of Ukraine when you want them to be, right? But when you need a public opinion poll or a finding or connecting of a dot, you conveniently delete them. They're not there. So a public opinion poll was conducted, minus Donbass, minus Crimea. Do you want to join NATO? It was more than 50%. But see, that's the whole point, George. Collectively, people, when they were still under Kiev's rule, it was way less than 50%. Why, everyone? Because most of the population, this is not widely, people are not widely aware of this, but the population outside of Kiev, then you have the Donbass and Crimea. That's where the population is.
No, that's exactly right. And I think that that's very important to emphasize that in 2008, when NATO invited Ukraine and Georgia to join, public opinion was against joining NATO and continued to do so. And in 2010, Yanukovych won the election and promised that we're not going to join NATO, that we're going to restore into the constitution the neutrality of Ukraine, that Ukraine will not join any military alliances. And he won the election on that platform. And of course, once you do that, then they're going to come after you. But
they did.
Like they did. But that's exactly the point. But of course, speaking of polls, it'd be fascinating if you were to conduct a poll, let's say in Europe, if you were to ask people, do you think Ukraine should be in NATO? Say, yeah, sure, why not? It's a club, why not join NATO? So do you think Ukraine should be in NATO if it means that it's going to provoke Russia into a war against NATO? Then say, no, I don't. That's not a great idea. No,
I don't think you would lose that wager, George.
Yeah,
if you win. I don't exactly. think. I think that would be, you'd go to the bank on that one.
Exactly. And that's the point about these polls. I mean, you ask a question, you say, yeah, sure, we've been NATO, okay. But if it means a war with Russia, which is what it would mean, are you still for it? No, of course I'm not for it. And that's the point. That's the dishonesty of the NATO leaders, who have inflicted a policy on their publics that they really do not support. And they lie to the publics by saying, well, it's just the negotiation. It's going to end in a negotiating table. All wars end at the negotiating. So we've got to keep the war going because we've got to get to a good position at the negotiating table. I mean,
well, who's bringing the table to the negotiations? It ain't the Russians.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because that was that train left the station in what, April of 2022. It's gone.
We're gonna talk about that in the next video. That's right. Yeah. So,
but anyway, first of all, Trump is hyper aware of what people think of him. That's part of who he is, everyone. And I'm pretty sure, he's not a daily consumer of Politico like we are. Okay. Yeah. But he knows what people are saying about him, and he has contempt for these Europeans, mostly because they have contempt for him. Exactly. And he's really into reciprocity, George. He's a reciprocity guy. Okay.
Yes.
And so I tend to think, and we said this earlier, I think we had a guest on once too. I think we had a German guest on. I think, Trump is just going to say, figure it out. Okay. Just this grift is over. Okay.
I agree. I think that if he were to come back, I think he'd be much less complacent towards the Europeans than he was in his first term. In first term, he was kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt and wanted to work with them and this time he's not going to do it. And I think that's why he really is going out of his way to troll them. And it's like the politicals say, oh, the rest of the world is very worried about the return of Trump.
Not.
No, European, the particular group of people running Europe is very worried about the return of Trump. Most of the rest of the world, I think, is rather good. Thank God we're going to have some sensible policies at last.
Well, with all of the money and propaganda surrounding NATO, I mean, it's a bust. Most people say NATO is not the reason for the problem in Ukraine. That's what most people in the world will say. Okay. Yeah. But you can't utter such words in the West. Okay. Right. So, Trump likes to troll. He's good at it. Okay. He knows how to press buttons and his base, they've gotten that message, because NATO isn't America first. It certainly, no one can make that argument with a straight face, George. Nobody.
No, that really is kind of America lost. We're on the hook for all of you. You go a bunch of, he says, yeah, you got a bunch of deadbeats and we're on the hook. You're right there. You're going out of your way to pick a fight, and we're on the hook. We have to get involved in all of your fights. They said, no, we're not going to do it. So yeah, it really is. He knows. He says this, which was, and he went, as I say, he went a little bit further this time. He said, not just, well, I'm not going to defend you. He said, yeah, I'm going to tell him, go right ahead. I think obviously the media are going crazy, and doubtless tomorrow, Monday, we'll have Sergeant Schultz talking about, very, very concerned, very, 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 very worried about this sort of talk.
But it's really kind of interesting because this is also a shot across the bow, or maybe a shot at the bow of the establishment Republicans. And he's just saying to them, I'm not backing down. You tricked me. You lied to me. Right. You're deceitful people. If I get back in that Oval Office, that's not going to happen yet. Now, would it? I don't know. But what I'm saying is that, he's saying to the Nikki Haley's of the party, he said, you want, that's your girl. We understand it, but that's not my party. That is not my base. And he's making it a distinction, very clear distinction between himself and the Republican establishment. Yeah. And with words like this, it does kind of trickle down. It's like, and they still want money for Ukraine. I mean, and Trump is saying, what do we even need NATO for? Right. I mean, again, this is to obstruct the establishment Republicans, and he's doing a great job at it because Trump's got, he's got a plurality of voters, active Republican voters, and that's the charm. I mean, he's going to win the nomination hands down and be formidable. So Trump is. It's the general campaign, everyone, for Trump.
No, that's exactly right. He's going to win this. And they say, it is his party. Yet the leadership of the party, Mitch McConnell, he kind of pretty much says, well, the only thing that I care about is Ukraine. I just want to get money to Ukraine. And this is bizarre that here is a party that's making its views plain by the way it's voting. And you got I guess the titular leader of the party, Mitch McConnell, saying, well, I don't care about the border. I don't care about anything other than getting money to Ukraine. American money, taxpayer money. I got to get it into the hands of Ukraine. That is that just shows the extent to which that Bush-McCain Republican thinking is so pervasive and deeply hated within their own party.
And it was Trump that pointed it out. He was the one that said, this is an issue that they're always jamming you. They're always deceiving you. And it's a winner. It's a winner. And he knows it. And that's why he keeps doing it. All right, everybody. Trump trolling the world. Okay.
The Trump troll.
And most of the world likes it. It's levity for them. But it's those grifters that have made an entire career out of this nonsense, dangerous nonsense at that. They're being put on the spot. Thank goodness and good job. All right, everybody. This is The Goggle with Peter and George. We're on Local, so please go to thegoggle.locals.com. I know, buddy. This is Sunday.
Yeah.
George and I will reconvene tomorrow, and his first live stream is Tuesday.
Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Come with comments, criticisms, suggestions, opinions, ideas. Everything is welcome. On the way out the door, think about little Buddy, because Buddy's saying, yeah, I'm going to do some trolling myself, and it's not going to be a pretty sight. And it's true, when Buddy trolls, it's no fun. So if you've got a few bob in your
We call it the Chihuahua troll.
the Chihuahua troll, it's brutal. So if you have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out. Don't come in his tip jar. That might cool the trolling down a little bit. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and above all, we can get Buddy off this the trolling racket. It's very painful. So remember, if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.